Welcome to the Ralph Bivens Project, where we discuss interesting trends, places, and projects with insightful guests. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check out realtynewsreport.com. Welcome to the Ralph Bivens Project. I'm Ralph Bivens. We're here today with Lacey Jacobs, and she is founder and president of a new company, Rebel Retail Advisors, based here in Houston, and she's the head of it, and they came out of the gates fast. So as far as I can tell, she's not starting from ground zero. She's running ahead pretty quick. How you doing, Lacey?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell me a little bit about Rebel Retail Advisors.
Sure. Yeah. So we launched officially this week, but started, as you mentioned, pretty hot out of the gate. We, as you know, our team came from Parkway Properties by way of the Midway Parkway partnership, and we were and continue to work on both Midway and Parkway's properties that include retail. And so we are continuing to work on those assets as well as some new projects that we've picked up in the last few months. But our focus is really placemaking, project leasing. We are specialists and experts, if I do say so, in creating a place. So it's a little different than probably the majority of the market, which is focused on big box, grocery anchored kind of retail. That is not our expertise. We are very much specialized urban mixed use retail. So that's what we're focused on. And then on the tenant side, we're focused in that same category of user, but we are now able to represent some tenants that align with those type of assets and projects. Obviously, when we work with landlords and have relationships with landlords, we're able to leverage those to benefit quality tenants as well.
Well, that's fantastic. And I believe that of course, you're woman-owned, and but I believe your brokerage staff are all females.
Yeah, that's accurate. That is accurate. It's interesting that it happened that way. It certainly hasn't been on purpose by any means, but yeah, I find that a lot of the talent is from women here in Houston.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the theme? The name Rebel. Can you tell me a little bit more how you decided on that? It's interesting.
Yeah, no, honestly, obviously we wanted something that people would remember, and that was eye-catching, but also that communicated clearly who we are. And personally, I think that we are the leasing team or the project leasing team that's willing to try things and willing to get creative and willing to think outside the box. So naturally, a little bit of a rebel. So we think of things as a how can we get this done, not how has it always been done. That's just our natural approach to any assignment and to any challenge, because retail's evolving and retail continues to evolve at a very rapid pace. And I think that unfortunately a lot of groups are failing to keep up with that because they want to do things the way it's always been done or the way it was done 10, 15 years ago. And that just doesn't work all the time anymore. So that's kind of where the name came from is the idea. And honestly, just from working with Midway for the past few years, there's a lot of things that they want to accomplish and they have vision of that isn't the norm. And so working alongside them and learning how to accomplish something that is different and that is challenging the status quo was honestly very fulfilling. And that's something we want to continue to focus on.
That's true. Yeah. The East River is that's tremendously innovative. I believe 150 acres just on the east side of downtown, barely a mile away from from Dakin Park baseball stadium. It's called,
yes.
I guess.
You almost got
like that, but about a mile away from what used to be called Minute Maid Park for where the Astros play. But it's close in, and man, I met Brad out there not too long ago. I'm just amazed at how much has been built and what's going on. And can you give us an update on East River?
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of the tenants right now, the restaurant tenants, are gearing up to get open. Actually, it's a little later than I think any of us anticipated, but honestly, the permitting process last year was a real struggle for a lot of them. But they've gotten through that, getting through construction, and most of those tenants and the non-restaurant tenants, some of the retail tenants that we put in the base of the Laura apartments, are all getting ready to open within the next few weeks, within the month, actually. So I think that people are going to be very pleased to be able to actually go there and experience what we've all been working on for the past 5 years or 5 years or more.
But it's yeah. Well, I remember when the groundbreaking occurred. It was during the pandemic,
That's
and
right.
everybody in stand there with shovels had masks on. And we're out in the middle of a big field. Nothing,
That's
nothing
right.
but had masks on. You know?
That's right. And we spent the 2 years before that taking people out to that big field and trying to sell them on the vision and the picture. And our team, obviously at that time being in-house with Midway, was able to pre-lease the retail about 40% to get to groundbreaking. And that was during COVID. So quite literally one of my proudest accomplishments.
Yeah, that's a lot of headwinds, man. That's a lot of headwinds.
Mhm.
Uh, Back then, wow. Uh, eh, you mentioned the Lar Apartments at East River, which you know, David Hightower and I took a walk through. Man, when it was new, and that was recently, but it's really unusual build out, extra large common space, uh, and they incorporated the the 20-foot containers that the
Yeah.
ships. They incorporated that, some other great things, and
Mhm.
it's man, I can't remember seeing a more unique or interesting or better interior design than that. It's really fits the place, and you're there on the water and there at the ship, not that far from the ship channel. Well, tell me about what you got some tenants into the Laura now as of retail tenants.
Yeah. Yes. So the Laura, the base of the retail there was about 10,000, just over 10,000 square feet. And the idea originally was to kind of create incubator space, if you will. So white box those, make them a little easier for first time operators to move into and build out. So Midway built all those out and provided restrooms, HVAC, lighting, all these things that typically in a new construction project you would have to put in yourself as a tenant. And so that allowed us to lease all those spaces to small business operators and some first time operators. So specifically, we have, I'll just start from one end to the next. We have Lafa Mediterranean, which is a bakery and cafe concept that's going in. And that's closest to the water side. And then next to them is a mom and daughter duo that's opening a boutique. They've had a pop up at the Post for probably a couple years and are ready to open their first brick and mortar. So they are undergoing their build out right now.
Their
And then we
apparel,
also
is it their apparel or something?
apparel, accessories, yes, you name it. It's kind of a women's boutique. I think they'll have some handbags and jewelry and things like that. But they, just the opportunity to work with kind of new businesses isn't something that I get the opportunity to do a lot, specifically because a lot of my clients are, institutional landlords looking for national credit tenants and that kind of thing. So it's actually a really special experience to work with new and small business owners on helping them get to the next step. So yeah, and I mean honestly, the others in there, we have a hair salon from a very talented hairstylist who was in a salon suite, for the last 5 years. And so she's opening her own salon down there in the Laura, and then several others that we're just really excited to bring some uniqueness and flavor to the project. That's not all just cookie cutter, you know, brands that you will see in every project.
Interesting mix. And of course, the Port of Houston is building their new headquarters building there. I think it's
That's right.
100,000 or close to it square feet. That's going to bring a lot more daytime traffic to all those, stores and restaurants rather and everything. So it's
Exactly.
going to be good. And I want to go back. You mentioned Midway, and how uh, they're doing taking on unusual things in unusual ways and cutting edge stuff, which City Center, which you know basically Katy Freeway at Sam Houston Tollway there, and it's been recognized by ULI and everything about being a really good breakthrough mixed use project. They scraped an old regional mall that was there a long time ago, and but they built this. It's been it's got a lot of recognition. I can see where you're coming up in the business, and they're doing something like that helped you with your your way of looking at things and doing business, thinking outside the box, and
Hmm.
all these things. So, what's
Exactly.
tell me a little bit about City Center right now. What's
Yeah.
going
Yeah, City Center it's interesting. Projects have a life cycle just like anything else, right? They're born, they're babies. They grow, they start growing up a little bit, get a little more mature, start attracting more, mature tenants, if you will. And that's kind of where City Center is. It's an adult now. It's a grown up, and it's definitely attracting um, kind of top tenants from across the country. Truly, I would say that's probably our most in demand property at the moment. We get calls from any new brand that wants to enter the Houston market. For the first time is typically looking at City Center, and it's not necessarily for their first location. That still tends to be inside the loop. But second, third, we're certainly on that list for those rollout plans. And tenants at the project are thriving. Their sales are, continue to grow. Performance has been pretty astounding post COVID, and we're very happy with that. And obviously, there's a lot of factors that can contribute to that. But and not that I lease the office space, I don't. But it's been very helpful for the retail that the office at City Center has stayed leased and occupied post COVID, and there continues to be more demand, i.e., specifically the new CC6 tower that's under construction and will complete this fall, which brings more retail. So we are currently in negotiation on the new 12,000 square feet of retail at the base of the CC6 office tower. And so we expect that to be primarily restaurants, and we expect them to be as successful, if not more successful, than the existing restaurants in the center. But yeah, the more office, the more demand, the more retail we can provide, and the more experience we can provide to the consumer. But it's getting to the place now where City Center is it's matured. It's an established project, and it's performing very well. And it's only up from here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they can raise rents too. It's pretty. With
Yes,
how the
luckily, I will say ownership there is very conscious of what tenants can bear, and so there's no. I would say they're not overly focused on just raising rents. It's certainly a focus on making sure tenants are healthy and happy, and that the consumer is getting what they demand. So it's refreshing to be partnered with owners who understand that.
and I guess the hotel there, the Moran, recently had redo, and I believe there you've got some new restaurant.
Yes. Yeah, they've
Offerings.
got a new restaurant and bar, which is very well done. I definitely highly recommend it. It's the bar sits just over the plaza, just above the Yard House and Daily Gather restaurant. So it's really a nice view. And you get it's a little quieter than sitting right on the plaza. So it's nice. It's a good experience.
Yeah, that people love that plaza. There's always kids running around there and stuff, playing on the grass, and uh,
Absolutely.
it's just well done all the way. I think now I'm not sure if you handling the. I guess it used to be Post Oak Central, but I believe they call it Central Park Post Oak now. On
That's right.
right north of the Galleria there. Of course,
Yes.
everybody knows pretty famous office development with three towers, and Philip Johnson, Gerald Hines
Mhm.
developed it, and it's going ready for its rebirth too.
That's right.
Give us an update on that one.
Yeah, so that's another one that we've been working very heavily on for the last couple of years. We're probably a little premature for any tenant announcements, but I do expect that those will be coming very soon. We are wrapping up some pretty dynamic restaurant leases that will help kick off the retail for the project. So I'm excited for all that to be shared. But at the moment, we're still finalizing those things. But I think the renderings and those announcements will come out later this year, hopefully sooner rather than later. And I think that it's going to be pretty huge for the city of Houston, especially for the Uptown District. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It's got everything, and I believe is Stuart Title still in there, or did they relocate somewhere else?
I believe they are. Don't quote me on that. I'm honestly
I
not
can't remember.
100%
Hey, I closed on a house there,
Yeah.
but it's been 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Closing
It's
a
funny,
house on.
everyone I talk to has a memory at that project in some
Mm.
regard, so it's pretty special, and I think it'll be nice to kind of, give it its second life.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see how that comes about. I bet it's going to be good. The other thing you're working on is really cutting edge, and mixed use, I guess, in a way. The Helix Park by
Yes.
the medical centers project there with just on the south side. It's by the bio, Braze Bio, but right on the edge, still in the medical center, I guess. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that.
Yes, that's a really exciting dynamic project, with TMC. It's actually involves a lot of partners, but all well represented in the Med Center. It is a very dynamic project. We're in the first phase of the lease up for that, including lab, research, office, and retail space. Our team will handle the retail. And we are currently getting basically onboarded and ramped up with them as one of our newer listings. So we're excited to bring some F&B dynamic services, some boutique fitness and retail to that area. There's so much density, as you know, in the Med Center. It's huge. It's the largest in the world, quite literally. So there's certainly a void for some quality retail to service not only the patients and doctors and professionals, but also visitors and the residents that have popped up in the area and around it. So that one, we also they actually did already pre-lease to Ojo de Agua, as well as Potbelly Sandwiches, who will be opening later this year. They're both getting underway on their construction, and so we'll be adding to that mix for this first phase. But really, I think we're focused on aligning with TMC and with the other owners there to help with the next phases.
Yeah, it's big. And the life sciences, they call a lot of that the more of the application into pharma and
Right.
pharma companies, things of that nature, or big innovation project, medical oriented, of course.
Absolutely. That's kind of one of the things that really attracted us as for a leasing assignment is that Helix Park is focused on research, lab, and professionals. So it's not necessarily hospitals that are at Helix Park, although they're around the project. The project itself today is primarily a hub for research and professionals and, people who certainly have the time to run down and grab lunch and meet for happy hour and have dinner, versus, in your ER or in your, where you're doing surgery all day or something like that. That may not be exactly the experience you can provide. But at Helix Park, there's definitely an opportunity for retail and restaurant operators to capitalize on that.
That's cool. Well, we did an interview about 5 years ago, and we were talking about, downtown Houston at that time,
Yep.
when it was, we were on lockdown, well, and stuff. And that was nobody was going back to work. I mean, Houston's one of the best. At least that's what the stats say. Houston's one
Right.
of the best at having people go back to work, and I think that era is kind of past. And I believe the federal government has some push on that too, and other leaders, Apple and Google, and some of these companies are saying it's time to come back to the office.
Yep.
But you have experience there. You worked on Green Street.
Mhm.
Tell me about downtown. What are
Yeah.
you thinking about downtown now?
I think downtown is ripe for a comeback, that's for sure. Quite honestly, I think a lot of the things that the downtown district have implemented and are continuing to implement with the streetscapes and with the walkability of Main Street and all these things that they're doing to enhance and support retail life and what we really call the street level experience. I mean, it's tremendously helpful, and I think you're just gonna continue to see that support the success and the comeback of street level retail in downtown. I mean, yes, of course, it got hit pretty hard post COVID, but that's to your point. A lot of people are back. The activity is there, and we just need to kind of help get the street level tenants back as well. And so I think we'll start to see a lot of that reappear over the next couple of years here. 12 to 18 months is what I would expect, because the downtown district's going to implement a lot of really important enhancements that I think will support that as well. Specifically Main Street. I'm really excited for that. I think that's going to be tremendously helpful, and I'm excited to see that unfold and to hopefully have a hand in bringing some tenants to it.
Yeah, the Main Street Promenade, they call it, and I believe the way up there on the north side of Main Street, where it gets close to the University of Houston downtown. I believe the first 7 blocks are going to be cut off to automobiles.
Yeah.
People, and I guess the train or the light rail down the middle, but
Yeah.
everything else is going to be wide sidewalks, places for street level cafes and stuff like that. So
Should be
quite
pretty
a
special.
change. You think that's going to work?
I do. I think it'll help. I think it'll support the retail that's there. I think it'll help encourage people to linger longer, which is kind of critical when it comes to retail. You have to create the place that encourages that. At the end of the day, if there are features and uncontrolled environments, it really limits the amount of time people want to be in a place. And so I think adding this level of control and enhancing this environment to where it is kind of a curated experience, it's going to go a long way. It's no different than the plaza at City Center. It's no different than the green space at East River. It's the exact same logic, and it works there. So
Yeah. Just thinking about it overall, bigger picture, more 30,000 feet up type of idea on retail. And a lot, I know you're really focused on the inner loop and downtown, other areas pretty close in, but
Yeah.
you have a pretty good knowledge about what's going on. You have a great knowledge about what's going on, but I mean, across the whole, suburbs, the whole metro area.
Sure.
What do you think's what's the story there with the retail for the whole city, and is it looking okay in
Yeah.
25? Or?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if the first 3 months of the year have been any indication, busy, and there's a lot of activity, and there's a lot of interest, continues to be a lot of interest in Texas, specifically in Houston, which is a good thing for all of us. And quite honestly, I think that'll continue for a while because tenants are performing. There's definitely sales and comparables to support new to market entries, and I think we'll continue to see that. And I think we're going to continue to see a lot of new development specifically in the lifestyle and mixed use category. There's all kinds of projects that have recently been announced and that are in the early stages. I think it's Trademark has a project out in Cypress, Dunham Point, that should be pretty exciting. And I think you're going to see more of that in the suburbs. It's taken a while for the density to grow in those areas to support projects like that, but we're certainly getting there. So I think there's going to be a lot more dynamic special retail in the suburbs over the next few years.
You mentioned Trademark. I know they, working on La Centera and Cinco Ranch Grand Parkway on the west side. Do you have heard anything about what they're going to do there? It's got pretty good occupancy, so I'm figuring
It does,
they
yeah.
have to do something. They're going to do something different and try to.
Yeah. I would
something.
expect. Yeah, I would expect that there's, whoever it is that ends up with that asset, I think is probably going to look at, pushing rates and pushing tenancy and trying to enhance that asset from definitely from an NOI perspective. But at the end of the day, it's a great project as it is. There's a few things that could certainly be done to reposition it and to continue to drive traffic and drive sales for the surrounding tenants. And I think that's, quite honestly, maybe I shouldn't share this because this would be my strategy on that asset, but it would be to kind of upgrade some of the full service restaurants, quite honestly. That at City Center is exactly what we've seen has driven traffic and is what drives sales to the non-F&B users. And so I think there's a lot of upside on that project that they could add value to, and I'm sure that's exactly what they plan to do.
Yeah, they seem like Trademarks, focused a little bit more on Houston lately,
Mhm.
coming in and making their mark and stuff. I guess any other before I want new restaurant concepts and things like that. What have you seen lately that you go, wow, that's it's great as you whatever, just something
Yeah.
that's like a great new concept. What have you seen?
Quite honestly, there are probably half a dozen new to market full service restaurants that I'm aware of specifically that are entering the market. I'm not sure that any of them are public yet, but they probably will be very soon. There's a huge focus from LA and New York and Chicago operators and owners for restaurants specifically. They are hugely focused on Texas, and a lot of them have really uncovered the value of Houston specifically. It used to be that everybody wanted to go to Austin or Dallas first. And I think that Houston is finally getting the attention it deserves. And so I think this year there will be at least, I would guess at least half a dozen new to market full service brands that are announced. And they'll primarily be, inside the loop and West Houston and the Woodlands. But that's to be expected. So I would definitely, from a consumer standpoint, it's going to be an exciting year for Houston restaurants.
What kind of menus are things there?
A lot of them tend to be full service, higher end, if you will. So certainly, I think there was that phase, and probably when we last talked, Ralph, there was a huge push on fast casual and kind of counter service F&B, and on the healthier side. I'm not sure what that says about the state of the world, but today it seems to be full service, kind of indulgent, experience based F&B and big alcohol sales, huge bar venues, special cocktails, decadent food. That's certainly where I'm seeing a lot of activity right now, which I'm all for. I love a good pasta dinner with a martini. So
Hey, speaking of new, uh, latest thing in the last couple of weeks, everybody talking about tariffs and
yeah.
everybody afraid of it. Have you the people you deal with, or what do you think that, and what your own interpretation? What's the tariff thing going to do? It seemed to
Yeah.
be pretty disruptive.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are still trying to kind of quantify that exactly and learn more about exactly what we're up against. But I mean, quite honestly, restaurants and retailers' costs have been up post COVID consistently. So it's certainly another hurdle for them, and in turn, it turns into a hurdle for landlords who are trying to meet certain um, rental rates or push rates or increase NOI. I mean, it's a challenge for everybody if costs go up. So I'm certainly worried about it, but I feel like it might be a little. I think there's still a lot more to be revealed and to be learned about exactly what it means. So hard to
Mm.
say yet.
And it changes every day.
It does. So that's why.
No, but I bet there's not going to be any more, 25-cent avocados from Mexico, and
No,
that's,
no.
if
Well, we haven't seen that in a
people like
while.
guacamole, you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of things are going to be affected. I mean, I would say it's probably easier to list people who would not be affected.
Mhm. All right, Lacey Jacobs, Rebel Retail Advisors. Thanks so much. Great talking to you, and let's talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ralph. Always a pleasure.